Class, you did a great job today. Congratulations. We had a really good, productive, and I think instructive session this morning. We engaged in all types of communication in a subtle combination of channels. We, of course, used our computers. Somebody may have used a smartphone, I'm not sure, but mostly laptops. And we, of course, engaged in face-to-face communication, and we engaged in conversation and small group communication with verbal expression. It was terrific. At that point where Beth was talking about using Skype to communicate with her husband when he's on a business trip or they're away, I said that I engaged in a practice called cognitive disruption. It's also called cognitive dissonance, except it's called that in different contexts. I really did do that deliberately to get you to think about the process that was being described, because I knew you were familiar with it. Beth was talking about a different channel than most of us are accustomed to. When most of us these days engage in FaceTime communication, we're using a telephone, which presents a couple of mediations. There's a gradient of mediations when FaceTime is used. You're using a smartphone. In most cases, there's a couple of adaptive devices where you can also do that, but it's typically a smartphone, which is computer mediation. You're using a channel, a telephone. It is a telephone, after all. You're also using micro presentation, depending on the type of phone you have or the model. It's usually an iPhone. There are apps that allow people to engage in FaceTime communication on an Android system phone, but most people don't bother with that. Most people just have iPhones and do it that way. So you're dealing there with the channel of a telephone, and you're dealing with mediation of essentially a computer, but we can also say a phone, and we can also say you're two-screening or maybe three-screening, because you have the coming down, so to speak, the different levels or the grades. I said there is a gradient of communication channels, or maybe we can say methodologies, because the smaller image of the person on the screen with whom you're communicating, and vice versa, makes that a different form of sorts. It also illustrates that interesting question we raised: is that a type of face-to-face communication? Well, it isn't really, because it's not physically face-to-face, but it's mediated face-to-face at least. We can say that. Interesting concept to knock around. So I just wanted to let you know you did a great job. We had good discussion. There was very little disruption. I hope no one feels I was too hard on them. I was trying to cajole and use some humor, and also a little bit of assertive communication in encouraging people to cooperate and participate in our activity this morning. We, again, did a good job. I'm proud of you. It was a great session, and I learned some things about people. You probably learned some about me. That's how it's supposed to work. As far as the theory goes, you're all probably aware of this. I just want to make the point as your professor. Studying takes many forms. One of those forms is class preparation. Now, I'm not saying anyone in particular or everybody, the whole class, did or didn't do this, but one good way, one ready and effective way to encourage and engender communication in a class, particularly for a discussion, is to be a little familiar with the material when you arrive at class. That way you're familiar with the terms, the ideas, you had a little time to think about it, and a little time to compare what you're reading about in the material to your own experiences, and then can relate illustrating anecdotes about how the material you're studying and learning relates to your life and to communication. So be sure to take a look at the information for the week described on our Blackboard site and get a little familiar with the concepts and the practices, the theories, and the stratagems discussed, so that we can have more really good class discussions like we had today. Okay, looking forward to seeing you there tomorrow. Have a great night. See you in class.